What is that thing that will never make it onto a label?
And one of the things that Gaia has done historically is stick to the way the ancients have used these herbs.
There's a big tension between what science supports and then what consumers maybe see on social media, on TikTok.
For us, at the end of the day, it's the proof is in the pudding.
Welcome to Inside the Formula, a SuppCo original series where we go behind the science of supplements that have earned the Tested by SuppCo certification. Each episode, I sit down with the formulators, chemists, and scientists behind these products to find out what it actually takes to make a supplement that works.
I'm Jordan Glenn, head of science at SuppCo. We here farm to table when it comes to our food, but what about supplements? My guest today is Ido Dagan. Ido has spent over 12 years working at Gaia Herbs and is currently the lab director for quality and technical operations, making sure every herb, extract, and finished bottle earns its place. From their Brevard, North Carolina lab, he leads the team that tests, validates, and when needed, sends formulas back to the bench. Before we begin, an important reminder. Tested by SuppCo is an independent certification program that SuppCo offers as part of its business model. Brands featured in this series have paid fees to have their products analyzed by the tested program, which tests the products that consumers actually buy to verify their active ingredient claims. Test results are published transparently, pass or fail, and cannot be influenced. Today's episode includes a brand partner. And now, my conversation with Ido Dagan. Welcome. Your background looks good. I actually think the flower, whatever you had going on, I like the flowers in the background. I think it gives it a nice kind of unique touch.
I mean, it's our echinacea, yeah.
Somehow I just feel like it fits your vibe a little better too. Like, you know, you got the long hair, you got the curls, you got the flower. I think it just works. And remind me where you're located again.
Good. I am in the facility that's on the farm in Brevard, North Carolina, Western Appalachia, land of the waterfalls. I think when you're going to ask me, what makes this place great, it's the people, the place, and the products, and that's part of it. You know, the location is a key component there.
What's the farm like this time of year?
Oh, it's starting to kick up into high gear. You know, we're about to do our hawthorn harvest. We're getting our hawthorn pre-ship samples where these samples get into the lab, and we're testing them for the procyanidins, the oligomeric procyanidins, the active compounds. The compounds they're great and have high antioxidant activity. There's more to it than just that. But yeah, we're trying to figure out when's the peak time to harvest those.
Yeah, I love it. Your background is synthetic chemistry. You come from drug discovery. Like, you did all that before coming to Gaia. What made you ultimately cross that bridge? What surprised you about coming over into the supplement world from that drug discovery world?
I mean, it's crazy. If you look at my career arc, you couldn't draw it up better, but it just somehow all fell together. I mean, I started out my career, for the, big bad pharma. I wasn't in a big pharmaceutical company, but we were doing drug discovery. So I got a chance to do that. From there, moved over to food testing. So just ran a lab that tested products for the restaurant industry. So we did all the nutritional testing there. We did a lot of residue testing for FDA detained products, things, so looking at residual antibiotics, residual pesticides. So I kind of started out pharma and looking at dose chemicals and looking at and learning how to formulate their medicinal, and then looking at the food. So one end of the extreme and then another one, and now I'm kind of like right in the middle, the dietary supplement. And I learned a lot, and it changed my life in terms of how I approach food and dietary supplement and pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I'm excited to talk more about that. And one of the things I think is super interesting about Gaia is that you harvest many of your own botanicals. You have the farm in North Carolina that you mentioned. Most consumers, when they buy a supplement, they see what's on a shelf or on online, marketplace or forum. For someone who doesn't really think about where a supplement actually starts, what does controlling that first step in the process really mean and change about how you approach supplements?
There's so much to it than that. Where do I even begin? So there's just a component of when you get the ingredient, whether it's a herbal commodity or already an extract that's made and studied, or even like an herb that's been turned into a powder. you gotta, the first and foremost, most important thing you have to do is demonstrate identity. So what is it that you're buying is what you received. That's, as far as the regulations are concerned, that's the most important thing you have to do when you're testing. But then on top of that, there's the strength. There's not all echinacea is created equal. Not all ashwagandha is created equal. So you got to test that for all the biomarkers. And then there's a safety aspect of it. So you got to test it for the pesticides and the microbes and the heavy metals. All that has to come into play when you're just starting to look at an ingredient before you can even use it.
And so talk to me about this harvesting process from the moment a plant is ready to come out of the ground or off a tree to the moment it becomes a data point in your lab. What does that process look like end to end?
One of the things that's so cool about having the farm right here on site is it looks differently depending on where it comes from. So if it's something that we harvest fresh, which is, again, it's something that makes us very unique, that doesn't have, not a lot of dietary supplement companies can't have that even have that opportunity to harvest something fresh, like our wild oats. We're about a month away from harvesting our wild oats. In that particular case, not only we have it harvested fresh from the farm, but we extract it fresh. And the reason why we do that is because we're trying to pick it right at when it's making the most latex. We call them milky wild oats because they're actually producing a milky white latex that has all these polysaccharides. And it's really difficult to do otherwise, because these things, when you're harvesting them fresh, you want to extract them right away. Otherwise, it's going to change the chemical composition. So nobody else has that opportunity to go grab it right off the ground, set it immediately with water and alcohol, because you have to do that. Otherwise, the product becomes microbially unstable. It'll grow bugs, it'll ferment, it'll compost before you even get a chance to extract it. But I'll pause there, but for a second, and go back to your original question. The sample comes, it's harvested. If it's not fresh, it's dried. And it's funny because you spend all that energy to remove the moisture from it, and you later on add water alcohol just to extract it again. You have to do that at times. Otherwise, like we said before, you can run into these microbe issues. But a sample is harvested, then it goes into our warehouse, and depending on the number of packages, it has to be sampled thoroughly using a sampling scheme that represents an entire lot. And then those subsamples get composited, brought over to the lab. And in the lab, we try to mimic what happens in our production facility. So we'll go and extract it. And we'll extract it using the water alcohol composition that's going to be used later on in production. And we'll look at, and then once that sample is extracted, those extracts get distributed. They'll be tested, like I said earlier, for micro. We'll do the entire micro testing suite in-house. Pesticides done in-house, are tested in-house. Heavy metals are tested in-house, and then identity and the biomarker are done in-house as well.
And so I think that's great because when you talk about, I mean, I've been to the farm, right? So I've seen like you can harvest, you go across the street, you're in the lab. It makes so much sense. The farm itself is under a process called regenerative organic certification farming, which really governs a lot of how you farm, but not necessarily what you're measuring in the lab. Do you actually see a difference in your data through this regenerative organic process when you're testing back in the labs?
We see some. It's interesting, but it doesn't even necessarily need to translate on paper. But we do see that. We see that our ginkgo is stronger than most of the ginkgo that comes from abroad. Our hawthorn, again, you can't really get that. But it's the thing about Gaia is it's more than just the product. It's the place, it's the people, and when it comes to regenerative farming, it's the soil, it's the land. We're shepherds of this land. We got to leave it better than we found it, and regenerating that topsoil and keeping the microflora of the soil healthy is a key component there.
I love that, and that leaving the land how you found it, being able to continue to farm on it year over year over year as you guys are producing amazing supplements and products, I think is incredible. And right now, you guys are harvesting hawthorn. And so I know that when you and I chatted previously, you said your first pre-harvest samples came back a little bit lower than what you had expected, but you were able to catch it immediately because your lab is literally right there. What is that look like for you guys? Or maybe at a company, how is it different where they don't grow their own ingredients right there?
And I mean, that's you nailed it around the head. It's being able to have that communication, being able to see people eye to eye, being able to chat with Kate, our farm manager, and say, hey, you know what? We haven't seen this number in a couple of years. It's been it's weird. What's going on? And be able to revisit it, and maybe not everybody's perfect. Maybe the lab did make an error there and waited a little bit too long to test it, but being able to immediately react to that, having those conversations, having that trust with each other, that's what makes, again, it's the people and they're key component to what makes our product so great.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you guys don't necessarily grow everything on the farm, and there are some things that you do have to source externally. And I know that you guys have a very rigorous process for how you vet or evaluate a supplier before you bring those ingredients in house. What does that look like before you will approve the use of a third party raw material?
Oh, that's good. We go through the whole new ingredient form process, a new ingredient validation process. And it depends on what we're doing. If it's a raw herb, it's a raw commodity, it's a little bit easier because by then, ideally, it's something that we've worked with in the past. We have validated standards from them that are either been DNA verified, or now we're using a lab that uses a technology called NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance, and metabolomics to demonstrate that the genus and species are correct for that particular herb. And once we have that established in our reference library, we test them using HPLC. That's high performance, high pressure liquid chromatography that gives us a nice fingerprint for it. We're also using additional testing, whether it's FTNIR or UV Vis, that produces a ton of variables. And we have validated methods, and now we can compare sample A to our reference material. If it's something more complicated than that, like an extract that's already been extracted by a producer that that they may have done some clinical trials associated with it, and it's made up of multiple ingredients, we go the extra mile and ask them to send us the raw materials that they used in order to produce that extract, and we will test those and demonstrate that the correct genus and species were used. And then we go through all the tests. We test them for, especially if it's an extract, we test them for residual solvents, for the gluten, for mycotoxins, all additional level of scrutiny in the front end. And later on, we may reduce it or we continue to test it depending on what we're finding. But yeah, including the residual solvents, one of the things we do differently than everybody else is that we actually test them to levels below what the United States Pharmacopoeia allows. So yeah, we put our vendors through the works.
See, I love that. You guys do so much testing internally to verify the quality of the products. But one thing we hear a lot about is third-party testing, sending it out, having somebody else validate it to verify that the work's been done internally is been done right. What does this independent level of verification mean for Gaia, and why did you ultimately decide to pursue the tested by SuppCo certification?
Well, that's great too. I mean, you always want a third party look at it, and then it's great to do that, and it's interesting too. But because when you have these methods established, whether it's USP methods or AOAC methods, they're already validated. They've gone through the scrutiny that demonstrates that those methods are appropriate. You can count on them, but oftentimes they may not necessarily be appropriate to your unique formulation. But to your specific questions, the more you test, the more other people look at it, the more confidence you have, not only with your product, but with your own level of testing. Our lab is an ISO 17025 accredited laboratory, and part of that is participating proficiency testing programs. We get unknown samples and we test them, and we compare our results to all these other labs, including SuppCo's testing and the labs they use. And we see how our results compare to the consensus. And that's a critical component to testing and testing validation. I love seeing third-party results. It's very interesting to me, and you always learn from them. But you also learn some of the reasons why it's nice to have an internal lab. A recent example is one of our new products. It's an awesome product, our milk thistle and berberine combination. It's a really cool combination. You have a USP method for milk thistle. You have a USP method for berberine. There's no method for the both of them. when we validate, when we go through that level, the scrutiny that you're just stress testing the test. You're demonstrating that the active ingredients from the berberine don't cover up those signals from the silymarins, and some of the third-party labs really have had that issue. And you wouldn't necessarily know that if you were just sending samples out. You might send that combination out and get a low results, and you're like, well, what's happening here? But because we were able to do it in-house and compare the results for third party, and we've done our own method validation, we were able to see some and work with the third party lab to get them up to speed and make sure that the results are up to snuff.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so have you ever had to reject batches or cut sourcing relationships because your own testing has revealed that something just didn't pass? Because you guys have incredibly high standards.
We've done that several times over the course of my career. One of the things we stick to is we don't extract with solvents other than water and alcohol, and then supercritical extraction. So, in the past, and it's very commonplace to get a curcuminoid extract that is extracted using ethyl acetate. We in the USP limit for ethyl acetate is about 5,000 ppm, about 0.5%. Not about, exactly 0.5%. So, we were supposed to be buying a curcuminoid extract that's just a water alcohol extract, and we tested it, to less than 0.5%, and we saw some residual ethyl acetate. The vendor was essentially buying an ethyl acetate extract and washing it with ethanol to make it look like it was an ethanol extract. We wouldn't have been able to catch them if we were just doing the regular USP method, but because we were going standards that were lower than that, we were able to bust them on that.
Oh, see, that's
bust them. It sounds kind of cruel, but it is what it is.
No, but I mean, that makes sense, right? Because you guys sell premium products. You guys sell very high quality supplements. I call them like pharma level supplements because of how well you guys test them. You have to have that testing in place, and it justifies why you guys are need to maybe even charge more, or why they're sold in a premium way, is because of that level of testing rigor that you guys put to task. I know recently the ashwagandha category had a major adulteration issue with leaf material being used to hit weight targets with addition to the root. Did you guys have issues with that as well?
And we called out a couple of vendors on it. And it's kind of interesting because everybody was chasing numbers, trying to get their with analyte contact higher. And the way to do that is to introduce some of the leaf in there. And the leaf, though, if you're not careful, if you're just running your regular USP test, but without some of the additional testing, you're not going to catch that. There's a few, what piqued our, spidey senses on it was that all of a sudden one of the peaks was a lot higher. The Witherferrin A was suspiciously high. And then right around the same time, there were some bulletins out there that talked about this adulteration. And another way to test for it is to look at the flavonoids that come from the leaves. These are compounds that are specific to the leaf that come along with it. So we added another channel, another wavelength in the assay that looks for these particular flavonoids, and we were able to demonstrate that the vendor was supplementing their extract with leaves in there, and we had to pivot to another vendor.
Yeah, see, I love that. Not supplementing in a good way, but yeah, I think that makes sense though, because
not in a good way.
we never know what we're buying, right? When we go online, like as consumers, we don't see all this work that happens behind the scenes. We don't see the testing, and so it's good to know that there are companies like yours that are doing this kind of work at the labs. And one thing that we see a lot is that there's a big tension between what science supports and then what consumers maybe see on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, etc. Where does Gaia really draw the lines on the claims that you'll make on the supplements you put out?
Oh, and that's an excellent question, because Gaia is, in general, a very conservative company. And it's tough because in the dietary supplement industry, when we do clinical trials, just to begin with, we can't even do clinical trials on disease state, because once you do that, now you're making a drug. You're no longer a dietary supplement. Whole other industry. And one of the things that Gaia has done historically is stick to the way the ancients and folks over the years have used these herbs, which we're not trying to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to package it in a format that is palatable and acceptable. You could take it on a regular basis. But our formulation focus, some of the founding principles has been let's not necessarily refine the products and chase a number, chase high curcuminoid numbers or high ergothioneine values just to get that number. For Gaia, we've always looked at it as there's so much that we don't know about how the herbs work. There's so much that goes into the synergistic effect of all these other compounds that are in there that we don't know about, that at the end of the day, people have been using these herbs for so long. People have been worshiping them for so long. Holy basil, they've used them in ritualistic ceremonies like the kava. There's something to it, there's something to it, but and you can study them, but to demonstrate synergism, man, I don't even think you could if you tried, because there's so many variables there. I know people have tried to do the clinical trials or to do in vivo and in vitro on to chase that kind of concept. There's meat there, there's something to it, but it's hard to scientifically demonstrate. So for us, at the end of the day, it's the proof is in the pudding. At the end, the person using it, the consumer using it, if they're getting the effect that they're looking for, and then that's kind of our philosophy.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing you mentioned a little bit at the top of our call, you mentioned people, how important it is the people that you have there at Gaia. And your lab specifically has a remarkable tenure. I know that some people have been there over a decade. I think the shortest person you said has been there about 3 years now. What does this continuity actually do
Yeah.
to the quality of the products and the testing that you guys can do?
It's amazing. We have, I was just looking at it the other day, 4 people have been there 20 plus years, another 3 people 10 plus years. It's crazy. You got Jinghua, who can tell if there's something wrong by looking at the sample before she even extracts it and throws it on the instrument. We got bright young scientists, amazing folks that I learned from more than I even get a chance to teach. They're just so energized and excited about the work that they do. They take so much pride in what they do there. And then it's not just the lab; it's across the board. I'm lucky, as my position as director of the quality control laboratory and technical operations. I get to interact with pretty much everybody at the plant and the facility. I get to work with the product development team because we handle the back end formulation and make the prototypes and the pilot samples. I get to work with the production folks and kind of share with their ideas and bring their ideas to life. If they're coming up with a more efficient way to extract it or a better process, I get to see all that in real time. It's a beautiful thing. I'm almost too lucky to have this job. It's kind of perfect. But all the ideas, the energy that you get from the folks on the floor, everybody around here really cares about what they're doing. They all have great ideas. It's just a matter of listening to them.
I think that's beautifully said, Ido. I mean, you cannot say enough when you have good people around you, how it can make not only the quality of a product good, but just the day-to-day job that you do. I love it. So we've talked about a lot of things. When you have people that are taking their Gaia products every day, what do you want them to understand about what went into making these supplements? What is that thing that will never make it onto a label?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought about it, and it really is. The Gaia difference is in how we formulate the products that we make. It is unique. I'll use an example. Our Adrenal Health. Adrenal Daily, actually, it's called now. When I started, it was called Adrenal Health. It's one of the first products I've ever taken. It's a unique combination of multiple extracts that will only work really in a Gaia format. And I'll explain why. Well, first of all, there's 2 different Gaia extracts that go in there. One of them is what I described earlier, our fresh extract of our milky wild oats. It's something that nobody else can do. So we extract a bunch of that, keep that as a water alcohol solution until we're ready to concentrate it. And then on top of that, we'll extract ashwagandha berries and then some more holy basil. So we'll bring that in the Gaia classical way. We'll charge a 2,000 liter reactor, throw in about 300 kgs worth of herb in there, add water alcohol, steep it, extract it. And then when it's time to concentrate that down, we'll inject that milky oat extract in there and concentrate that together. We'll add a little bit of excipient system or glycerin to help move the product along. And then that's our Gaia ingredient. And then to that, we will add ashwagandha extract that we demonstrated doesn't have any leaf in it. We'll add a supercritical extract of holy basil, and we've already extracted holy basil, but now we're adding a supercritical extract to that, and I'll explain why we do that here in a second. And let's see if I'm missing anything else. So we got the Shajandra, we got the holy basil hydroethanolic extract, holy basil supercritical extract. Oh, rhodiola. Again, another extract that goes in there. And those are powdered extract. Those are solids that are later on blended in together. So that's a complicated system. And really, and a key component there is that supercritical extract. Because one of the things that, you read a label. You ask me what a customer sees holy basil extract and is like, they don't know what the difference is between one holy basil extract or another. Here we have two different holy basil extracts. The supercritical extract, it brings out the lipophilic, the fat soluble components out of that, the terpenes, the essential oils that we would normally not capture from a regular holy basil extract that's dried and extracted at a later date. By then, if you take holy basil, you dry it out. By then, you nuke most of your terpenes, most of your essential oils. So that supercritical extract brings that other component to the table. You can't put a supercritical extract in a tablet. You can't put that in a powdered capsule. So again, it's a very complicated mixture of different extracts. And yeah, there's people out there. Our Adrenal Health is a very successful product. People have tried to copy it, and it looks like you look at it on paper, you look at the ingredient side, it looks the same, but it really isn't the same. That supercritical extract brings in eugenol, brings in terpenes. It's how holy basil was taken traditionally. Holy basil was taken traditionally fresh or in tea. You're not going to get that out of a dry. But the dry also has some cool mojo to it too. It's got some nice flavonoids. It's got rosmarinic acids. It's got some other nice things in there that you would get in the tea, but you only really get with fresh. I said a lot, but it really is a difference maker.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, you guys are taking such care. You guys are getting your timing right. With you guys have literally the farm across the street from your labs. You have everything you need to maximize the potential of the products you're putting in. Now, my last question, Ido, is one for you personally. I want to know one supplement that you cannot live without, and I want to know one supplement that you think is flying under the radar that you wish more people knew about.
Ooh. Oh man. I guess I think I like the rhodiola just because I'm a runner, and my friend really got me going on that, and I do feel like a difference when I take the rhodiola as far as being able to run longer, recovery specifically. It's great. I love that product. I'm a big fan of our Adrenal Health. I'm sorry, Adrenal Daily. Our marketing team is going to kill me for butchering that name. And in under the radar, ooh, man, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm really, it's not necessarily for me, but I'm really excited about some of the new products that are coming out with some new extractions, new types of extract that we haven't worked before. Shatavari extract that will be coming out pretty soon. I think that's gonna that's got some the folks that produce that extract that we work with. They're amazing people. They have a great story behind them. Yeah, I think that one's going to be an emerging product for us pretty soon.
I love it. You've heard of Farm to Table. There's a supplements doing the same thing, from the farms in Brevard to the labs across the street. Ido, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jordan.